I'll check it on my phone too.
All right, we're live.
There it is. Okay. All right. Well, hello everybody. I guess before we'll get started shortly. We were going to allow for a few minutes for everyone to jump onto the stream. I'm not sure if we have a minimum amount of people that we want to allow to join before we get started. I guess we'll give everyone, 60 seconds before they get into it.
Okay.
Because we're really generous. Tell you what, while we're waiting, I'll give a quick introduction. I'm Rai. I'm one of the organizers of Product Tank here in Tokyo, but you can't tell that because I'm inside, but everybody else is right now. We've got Hannah in the top left of the screen above me here. She's also one of the organizers who's been doing it longer than I have. We've got Jasper in the top right. This is Ramirez, who's also started helping us with the organization. And we've also got Todd, a guest, our speaker today, we're all here for. So we'll get started in just a few seconds, but I guess just before we do, if anyone has any questions or anything, decided to kind of just leverage the chat, Jasper will be keeping an eye on it and it's moderating it. So if you have any questions or if you're curious about something, just feel free to add it. We'll try and address that as best we can. And I suppose we'll have a little bit of time to get this as well to talk as a few questions you might have. So I'm sure there'll probably be some details too if someone wants to contact us after we do something. Usually have questions later that day or someone's like, I was thinking about this and so cool. All right. Well, I guess we've given people 2 whole minutes to get started. Everyone's been patient. So I guess Hannah, you want to go onto my screen? I'll do the fun stuff.
Okay.
Cool. Good enough. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today for the World Product Day, May 27th. There's a whole bunch of events going on today, so if you guys want even more product stuff, stick around and there'll be some other streams on the website. But this is the one for today. So a little bit of background information first. Product Tank was first started about 10 years ago when product management and wasn't much of a thing. I mean, it kind of was, but there wasn't really a lot of community around it. So that's when Product Tank started, sort of talked up its position and really start discussing and sharing information and getting to know other people in the field. And then that led to Mind the Product, which is now one of the sort of the brand of which all of this is tied together. It has a whole bunch of conferences that are usually under normal circumstances held, and people can fly all over and visit the convention centers. This year, for obvious reasons, but we have a lot of people, many countries, lots of people. In fact, this group has grown considerably in the last just 12 months alone. Part of, I guess, Mari's presentation. There's new followers meet up. But yeah, it's a lot less than we do. If you're curious and you want more information, please check out the website. There's a whole bunch of additional stuff here, so I won't avoid any of those details. But we've got a whole bunch of not just about meetups, but also about content and there's uploads of previous talks and events. There's also job postings and other cool stuff like that. And there's also a membership program, which has sort of just been started. And there's lots of really cool little perks and things that you can find there. So if you head over to that website and check it out, maybe there's something that's interesting to you. And I know that most companies are pretty happy to sponsor that too, so it could be free. This is also a community that we're sort of still growing and we're still sharing with everybody. So we're always on the lookout for people who want to try presenting their own topics and sharing stuff, or even just getting together for meetups and all sorts of things. So, feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll leave some details. But yeah, if anyone wants to get involved, please reach out to us. So yeah, we just covered that. So today is the 10th anniversary of Product Tank, so it's a pretty big milestone for us. So in celebration, we're actually doing a whole bunch of events across 15 time zones over the next 25 hours. So I think we're sort of in the middle, more or less. But yeah, I think you can see past streams, the ones that happened earlier today, on the YouTube channel if you want to check that out. And it's all obviously on the website. So without too much extra stuff, we're going to move on to tonight's event, which is the new flavors of product management: leaner, faster, and more experimental. And this is brought to us by Todd. So Todd's a product management director and consultant and author of the book, Becoming a More Strategic Product Manager. I've managed to have a sneak peek at some of the content tonight. It's pretty cool stuff, pretty exciting, pretty relevant. And I want to say thanks to Todd for joining us, helping us celebrate World Product Day, and also giving us his time to act podcast. So I guess with nothing else, we'll hand it back to Todd.
Okay. Right. Hey, thanks for the introduction. It's just great to be here on World Product Day and be here with Product Tank Tokyo. So it's great, and thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's just great to be here. And I think I'm guessing we're probably one of the first World Product Day events. Maybe Australia beat us to some a couple of hours
earlier. Those Australians, you can't trust them.
You just can't trust them. That's right. Very good. Am I showing? Yep. Okay, I'm sharing a screen. All right, great. I'm going to start off today just by talking about one company. So I'm just going to talk about a company that you probably haven't heard of, but they're kind of an interesting company. So this is Truckin. They are in the trucking space. They're a San Francisco-based startup. And their first application was an electronic logbook. And this is called an ELD, electronic logging device. And this tracks truck drivers' hours of service. Okay, so, and by the way, we added, thanks to Hannah, we added some Japanese translations trying to catch the main points, at least off these slides, if it helps out. So, trucking, just to explain briefly, if you are a truck driver in the U.S. or in Canada, also Australia, I don't know about Japan, but if you're a truck driver in the U.S., you have to track your hours. You have to record when you're on duty and driving. You have to record when you're on duty and not driving, when you're sleeping, when you're off duty. And the reason I think is fairly obvious. It's really for safety. It's regulations, so that you don't have a truck driver driving 16 hours and then falling asleep at the wheel. So Truckin came into this market, and their first application was to develop an electronic logging device, an ELD, and it's an application, and they put it onto a phone. So what was interesting about Truckin was they entered a pretty crowded space. I mean, they didn't enter a blue ocean. They entered a red ocean here. They entered a place where long-established companies like Omnitrax and PeopleNet were already there, and they already had relationships with all the major trucking companies. It's a pretty crowded space, but they decided to come in. And what happened was, Truckin, it's just been remarkably successful. So that's why it's a fun company to talk about. I mean, they went from 0 trucks 2 years ago to 250,000 trucks in 2 years. So it's a pretty amazing company, remarkably successful, especially given the crowded space. Now that's the happy side of the story. Let's go to the maybe not less happy side of the story, and that is that think about the product managers and the business managers at Omnitrax and PeopleNet. I mean, they let Truckin take 250,000 of their customers, or potential customers. And this is a high profit business. It's probably 60-70% profit margin. They're each paying subscriptions of about $30 a month per truck. So it's kind of ouch. So I want to stop here a minute, and if we can do this, if I was in the room, if we're all together, I would just have you we would just have a discussion right here. But I can't quite do that, right? But if you guys want to just add some comments here, that would be great. I guess my question is, you guys would probably not have heard of Truckin before. You probably haven't heard of Omnitrax or PeopleNet. That's okay. You probably don't know much about electronic logging devices. But just think about companies that you do know that are long established and have competitors coming in and suddenly taking a bunch of share. I mean, when you think about this situation, what happened? How did this happen? Just throw out some ideas. I don't know if we can get a bit of a chat going, but tell me why stuff like this happens. I don't know if we're getting anything or not, but
I mean, I'm sure that we can contribute.
Live, so.
okay. Next time we'll all be in a room together. We can do this live.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so this is live, everyone. If you want to, enter anything in the comments in terms of what you think the answers to this question might be, please feel free, and then we can surface that actually as comments as we go.
And I wouldn't expect you to know the answer. I'm just curious from your past experience why things like this might happen. And Jasper and Ra, you guys could comment as well. I mean, it's just curious. How does this happen?
Yeah,
what did these companies do wrong?
I guess they've just sort of, my assumption is perhaps that they haven't really, considered a certain target market or audience that are using their products.
So I think we have a first comment here, right, from, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, Ionis Priviolos, which is, he said, excited to be here, probably user experience and customer journey. Yeah,
that's good. User experience, customer journey, yes. So really kind of understanding your users in this case, understanding what they're going through. That's good.
There's another comment by Matt Andrews, who said that in an ideal case, the market is growing, parentheses, smartphone adoption increasing maybe, and all players grew.
Matt, that's a great answer. And I didn't tell you all the background, but that truly was happening. There was regulations in the US that asked, that essentially forced every trucking company to have ELDs in every truck. So the market was growing rapidly. I think that's a good answer because in a sense, Omnitrax and PeopleNet were probably feeling pretty good because they're growing. But in reality, Keep Trucking snuck in during this time. So, and they took, Omnitrax and PeopleNet, I think, would have grown quite a bit more had Keep Trucking not come in. Those are good answers. Was there anything else?
Yeah, and then from Richin Shrestha, so sorry again, butchering your name, who said that maybe the established companies were too proud and too confident about their relationship.
I think that's a great answer. Yeah, I think, often long-established companies, and I think Omnitrax and PeopleNet were guilty of this, they get a little arrogant. They kind of think that, yeah, we've always owned this market, we're going to be fine, and they kind of stop looking for new threats coming in. Yeah, I think that's a real factor. Okay, these are great answers. Was there anything else?
Yes, and then from a Omar El Sayed, who said, it is because it is serving great value to the end customer. And this is what a great product is all about. Yeah, no, that's a great point. So Keep Truckin', I think, came in and did just exactly that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I think they did just exactly that. They really kind of established, they understood their customer needs and really established a great product. And I think that's also very, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going. To, Anshit Shahari, I just wanted to bring it up so that no one thinks that we're sort of missing anybody. But please go on. Well, that's good. If we had more, was there more comments? Yeah, we do have some continuing to come by. So Anshit, he or she, I don't know which sort of gender that name is, sorry, mentioned that targeted segments which were being lost by the established players. Yeah, that's true. So Keep Truckin'. It's possible that Omnitrax and PeopleNet kept their biggest customers, but they started losing all the new customers that were coming in, maybe slightly smaller. That's correct. I think that's right. All right, this is good. Thank you. Thanks for doing this. I didn't know how that would work at kind of an event like this when we're all online, but that was great. Those were great comments. So, all right. So I think, I'm going to talk about Keep Truckin' as an example going through here, but I think Keep Truckin' found big success by being kind of leaner, faster, more experimental than their competitors, and this is, I'll just call this is kind of the new flavors of product management. This is product management that's kind of emerged over the past 5 to 10 years, has really kind of picked up traction lately. So kind of leaner, faster, more experimental. Keep Truckin' is a great example of that. And so we're going to talk that through in this presentation, and we're also going to talk through
I think some of those best practices are about being leaner, faster, and more experimental, and stuff that as product managers, we can kind of all take back and incorporate into our own work. All right, so I'm going to just make a few comments here. When, traditional product management and product development, they tend to use, some form of stage gates. Okay, so you've probably heard of this term, kind of a little more waterfall techniques. Kind of the more new flavored product teams tend to use a little more discovery and delivery approaches. So continuous discovery and delivery. So I'm going to talk about those two approaches. We're going to compare them, just kind of think about them a little bit. Let me start with stage gates. So, for companies worldwide, stage gates process is just very common. I mean, I think about my own career. I spent a long time at HP. I mean, I don't know how we would have gotten printers out the door. I was working on color laser printers. How would we have gotten printers out the door without the stage gates process? It really helped us a bunch. Now, stages those are the phases of a new product or service development. So I've got some listed here. These are just generic ones. It might be a scoping phase, a business case phase, a development phase, testing, launch. They vary by company, but they're broken up by gates. And in the gates, they're kind of checkpoints, they're management reviews. And this is where, executives make go kill decisions. So yes, they're going to review what's happened with the development of a product. They're going to make a decision to go to the next stage, or a decision to cancel a product. And typically those decisions are made on a couple of different reasons. One is, how's your development going with your product? And then how is the development for this product relative to everything else that we're working on? Is it still a priority? So, and then if you decide to go, typically the next stage of funding is allocated. So if you're in scoping and you get the approval, then you're going to go to business case, and you can kind of expect that you're going to have the resources to complete the business case. That makes sense? Kind of a stage gates process is very common. You guys might have used something like this. You might be using something like this today. It's just very common. Now I'm going to contrast that a little bit to discovery and delivery. So here in this chart, I need to explain the axes real quick. So let's go to the y-axis first. So here we're talking about market fit. So how close, is there a product market fit? Is there a good match between what you're building or planning to build and what customers want? So at the bottom of the y-axis, it's kind of uncertain. We don't really know. It might be a great thing. It might have great product market fit. It might not. We just don't know yet. Okay, then we go up to the top, and then you've got high product market fit. Then we go to the x-axis, and this is about product readiness. Is the product ready for prime time, or is it kind of, on the left, is it kind of rough? You're just starting a product development, or is it kind of off to the right where it's refined and kind of perfected over time? All right, those are the two axes. And then the discovery and delivery process, it starts with ideas. You have a lot of ideas that come from a lot of different sources. And then you go through, then you test your ideas with customers. You just try them out. You just talk to people about it. You're in your customer interviews, and you see what they think. And then for ideas that are testing well, you go ahead and do some experimentation and prototyping. Maybe you're going to start with just a paper printout of your concept. Maybe the next time you talk to them, it's going to be a video concept, where you're going to show it on video. Maybe the next time it's a clickable prototype or a 3D model. So you're continuing to get feedback, and you're continuing to refine your concepts, and then take it back out again. So it's kind of this loop, this customer loop that you're going through. And then we go through to a delivery phase where you're kind of releasing incrementally out to the market. And then, really, especially with software, but really for all of our products, they're never really done. We're always kind of continuously refining them. So at a top level, that's a discovery and delivery process. Now, I'll make a point about this discovery and delivery. I mean, it's kind of a funnel process. You're going to start with a lot of ideas. You're going to quickly realize that, a lot of those ideas are not good. So you're going to toss them out. And then you're going to go to, you're only going to take some to the discovery process where you're kind of doing this back and forth prototyping with your customers. And then only just a few are going to make it all the way to delivery. You're only going to ask your engineering team to really finalize a few of those ideas that are really testing well. So that's what makes this process very lean. You're not really devoting resources much at the beginning. You're quickly sorting through ideas. You're devoting resources at the end when you know that you've really kind of have found product market fit. And it's also kind of it's kind of a non-linear iterative process. You might have ideas that go into discovery. You might realize that that doesn't really work. You can go back to the idea stage. It's not nearly as linear as like a stage gates process. All right, I just want to compare those two processes because they're kind of they're both in use. They're in use in different places, and people mix and match even. So let's just talk about these. So stage gates, customer insight, and discovery and delivery. In both cases, you want deep customer insight. But there's something unique about discovery and delivery, and that is typically your customer insight is evolving. You don't really necessarily expect it all up front. You're just going to learn as you go, which actually kind of, as product managers, kind of takes a little bit of pressure off us because truly we're learning. We're having new questions as we go along. We're just testing things out. And we're learning the market as we move along. And then kind of characteristics of both sides. Stage gates can be very systematic, deliberative. It can be slow. I mentioned that I worked for HP for a long time. If you're making a printer and you're developing a printer, you got to get it right. You could have 100, 200,000 printers out there and you realize there's a mistake. That's a problem. So it kind of makes you a little more slow and a little more systematic and deliberative. Whereas discovery and delivery can just be so fast, so flexible, and highly productive. In terms of market requirements, often for stage gates, I mean, companies that run this stuff often, you kind of determine your market requirements up front in those early stages. And you say, okay, let's go build this. And it might be 9 months or 12 months later that you actually release the product. But a lot of the market requirements, 80, 90% are showing up right at the beginning. With discovery and delivery, it's really different. You're really kind of figuring out your requirements as you go along. You're doing this rapid prototyping so that you're learning as you go along. So it's really almost just closely prior or, almost concurrent with your development process. And then product releases, we're going to talk about this a little later, but stage gates tends to be bigger and later. Discovery and delivery, you tend to break it up in very small increments. You try to get smaller and sooner out quicker. Now, the sweet spot for stage gates, it tends to be kind of high investment hardware, like I was talking about at HP, or if you're building the next moon rocket, if you're SpaceX or somebody, anything that's got high hardware investment often tends towards stage gates. You got to be very careful about that because mistakes are hard to correct. They're expensive to correct. On the other hand, discovery and delivery, the sweet spot is really rapid software development. And for you guys that are working in software, this. If you make a mistake in software, you can often correct it tomorrow. You can correct it almost immediately. So the cost of mistakes is not nearly as high. So that's what drives some of the differences between these methods. But there's risks associated with both methods. Stage gates, you can just get beaten by faster discovery and delivery competitors because it's just too slow. And then discovery and delivery, sometimes there's just kind of poor coordination and sometimes financial risk with complex projects. I'm hoping that makes sense. I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of those two kind of styles of product development. All right, so I'm going to make a few comments, and that is that not every product team can move from stage gates to discovery and delivery. So I know we're talking about the new flavors of discovery and delivery, or certain new flavors of product management that is more in line with discovery and delivery, but not every product team can move there simply because their product, their requirements, the cost to fix mistakes kind of drives them more towards the stage gates area. But I'm going to tell you that every product team out there can be a little more new flavored. You can all do this. You can incorporate some of those best practices of discovery and delivery into your own work. So that's what we want to do in this. What I want to do in the rest of the presentation is I want to talk about kind of the three best practices that almost every product team can apply. Kind of these new flavored best practices almost every new product team can apply and benefit from. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to give you three different things. One is talk directly to real customers. We'll talk about that. I'm going to talk about the second one is to test your product concepts. And the third is to find ways to release incrementally. And I think all three of these apply to almost every product team out there. You can apply some best practices to all these in all three of these areas. So we're going to talk them through. So we're going to start with talking directly to real customers. And here, I want to take a break again. Let's do a chat again. So if you guys want to jump on chat, I want to know, are you talking to your customers today? Are you getting out? How often are you talking to your customers? Is it something you commonly do? Is it something that you don't do? Maybe would like to do, or tell me where you're at on this one. So again, if we were all all in the same room, and you guys we could just have a quick discussion, but let's just do it online here.
We did have one question that was just from the previous slide from Martin, which is up on screen now. He was asking, how would the discovery delivery process be differ between early stage startups, growth startups, and established companies?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think for discovery and delivery, I mean, if you think about the job of a startup, it is really to find product market fit. I mean, you really got that as a central challenge. So that discovery and delivery process is absolutely essential. I think for companies with more established products, you still want to go through the discovery and delivery process, but you've also got products out in the market that you are getting a lot of feedback on. So you're kind of building off something that you already have, whereas discovery and delivery, with a startup, you're almost starting from nothing. So it's really your job to find that product market fit.
There's also an answer now coming through about your sort of slide question. So Omar's back and he says, I'm talking to customers on daily terms, either the end customers or the buyers from our products, as we're providing B2B and B2C products based. Also, it is useful to hear from technical support.
Oh, great. Okay, that's good. Yes, technical support is good as well. Great. There we go. Great. Thanks, Omar. That was a good one.
There's a bit of a delay, so I guess people are probably just starting to type things down. Or either that or nobody's talking to their customers.
Okay. All right. You got another?
Yeah, we've got another one. So Alan said that we are in academic publication business, help them getting published. It is very difficult to get in touch with them. We listen to the customer voice from feedback and complaint loops mostly.
Okay, that's a good one. So that's a little bit on the other side of the spectrum. So you're hearing it kind of secondhand, kind of through what was the customer support groups?
There's actually another follow-up from Keika-san, who said that we're indirectly talking to customers through our sales teams. They function as the voice of the customer for us.
Okay. This is good. Okay, so through the sales teams and then also through kind of customer support. And then we heard from Omar, I think, who is talking directly to customers often. Alan, you said that it's kind of difficult to get out. You're in the publication business. It's difficult to get out. Great. Okay. And Sugiyama-san. Okay. Yep. And the voice of the customer comes through sales. Okay.
That's it so far.
Okay. Here's how to okay.
We also had another comment from Omar saying, I think the important question here is how to tack communication with the customer and use it as a great quantitative data.
Yeah. A lot of customer communication, I mean, the stuff I'm going to talk about today is a little less quantitative. It is more kind of hearing people's stories, hearing people's anecdotes, really understanding them. But certainly there are ways to get customer data that is much more quantitative. But the stuff I'm going to talk about today just kind of is much more qualitative.
And then we also have from Matt saying, through sales team is my case too, but that causes issues because sometimes it's like a game of telephone and the real issues get a little bit warped.
That's great, Matt. I think so as well, and I was going to talk about that in a minute. Your sales teams do have a lot of biases. They've got a recency bias. They think about the last people they talked to. They've got a bias towards large enterprise customers because that's also who they talk to. They tend to talk less to mid-market or smaller customers. There's a lot, and they're not, at the end of the day, they're not product professionals. They're focused on selling products. So yeah, I think it's important to reach out directly to customers, partly because we get a bit of a filtered view. Who was that was saying that? Matt, yeah. So Matt, I agree with you on that one. So.
Actually, Keika-san followed up with a similar thing, which he said that it's been challenging telling apart the sales needs, so requirements that would help them meet their sales targets and bonus, and the actual voice of the customer. So it sounds very much in line with that.
That's true. Yes, I think so as well. That's right. So what's going to help the sales team in this next quarter is not necessarily the information that you need to know to really drive long-term product success. That's good. All right, I'm going to keep going. So that's great. Thanks for jumping in on that one. So I just note that we can and should understand our customers in a lot of different ways. I mean, we have customer satisfaction surveys, we've got net promoter scores, we've got third-party research reports. A lot of that's quantitative. We've got product usage data. But I really think our most insightful source of information is just direct conversations with real customers. So, and I'm just going to state, I think the first rule of excellent product management is interview customers early and often. I just feel pretty strongly about this. I've seen a lot of teams really gain a lot of traction when they start doing this. I'm going to quote from Jeff Bezos here. He said, good inventors and designers deeply understand their customers. They spend tremendous energy developing that intuition. They study and understand many anecdotes rather than only the averages you find on surveys. And a remarkable customer journey starts with heart, intuition, curiosity, play, guts, taste. You won't find that you won't find this on any survey. I think this is, I mean, Jeff Bezos, of course, is the CEO of Amazon, but I think at his heart, he's really just a product guy. I mean, this is, when I read this, I was like, oh, he's got it. He knows what it means to lead a product team, to be a product manager. I mean, he feels it in his heart. So I really think this is important. We got to get beyond just, the surveys. You really want to get to the anecdotes. You want to get to that deep, intuitive understanding of your customers. And I think that's what's going to really help guide your work as product managers. You can guide your work on new product development. All right, that was Jeff Bezos. I think, if we think about it, and this is my advice to you, is go ahead and just, I would, even if you've got the sales team in between you, I would really kind of push this a little bit and start talking as much as you can to direct customers. Of course, talk to your sales team. I want you to do that, but reach out, talk to your real customers. The process is not that hard. I'm going to start at the bottom. You kind of determine your learning objectives, just kind of what do you want to learn from this. You craft a simple interview guide, 20 minutes to 60 minutes long, kind of plan for that. It's an in-depth interview. You recruit respondents, not so tough to do. There's lots of people that are often our customers are willing to talk to us. You find them, you interview them, you test your product concepts during the interviews as well. You show them some ideas. And then once you get a set of customers out, you analyze that information and you use it. And I think the important thing, and this goes back to kind of the new flavors of product management, the important thing is to rinse and repeat on this one. So really, I think as product managers, you should be doing about 10 in-depth interviews per quarter. I mean, it's a bit of a tall order. Not a lot of product managers get that far, but if you're doing that, you're going to be having, it's probably spread out over time. You're going to be asking new questions as they come up. You're going to be really developing that kind of in-depth understanding of your customers that I think is just essential to creating great products. That's the process. I'll say a couple other things. First of all, who are my customers? This came up in the discussion. So I really think it's the companies, it's the groups, the individuals who are benefiting from your product, or let's speak broadly, your competitors' products, or potential customers. Okay, people haven't bought yet. But I don't think it's your sales reps. It's not your sales channels. They just, as we talked, I mean, it's just, they have a lot of bias. And they're not product professionals. We need to have product conversations with customers. We need to understand them without trying to, make a sale at the end of the conversation. We need to test our product concepts. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But you really need that. And to do that, you need to talk directly to your customers and not necessarily go through channels. I know it's probably a tall order for some of you guys, but almost every product team can push this a little bit. Every product team can get out and start talking to real customers. All right, now I'm going to go back to Keep Truckin. We talked about them earlier. What did they do? We're kind of thinking about how they stole so much, potential share from Omni, or they did steal market share from Omnitrax and PeopleNet. They were a new startup. They go out, they go to truck stops. If you're talking to truck drivers, you got to go to truck stops. So, I think they were in California. They started off, in San Diego. They go to, east of San Diego, one of the truck stops out there. They just talked to truckers. They said, what do you like? What do you dislike about your logging devices today? They had them show, how did you do this? They did a walkthrough. They did an ethnography. How do you, what's working for you? What's not? What would you like to see changed? And really, I think it's important throughout all this just to do what Keep Truckin did, and then hear their stories, understand their needs, understand their hopes, try to see the world through their eyes. All right, that's talking directly to real customers. I'm going to move on to the second one. Did we get a question?
Yeah, we have a few.
Okay, did we have, maybe I'll stop if we got some questions.
Oh, and yes, so we do have some questions coming in. For example, one of them is from VJ, who mentioned technology is taking over the world. Does everyone, leaders and CEO, need to learn technology and programming? If not, then what should they focus on? What should they learn?
Oh, I mean, yeah. So that's a little bit different. I think we need to all, as product managers, need to have a good technical understanding. We have an appreciation for what our engineering teams go through, but a lot of this type of work that we're just talking about now, like talking directly to real customers, it's not necessarily engineering skills that we need here. It's really kind of listening. It's almost anthropology skills.
Yeah, and I think that relates to the next question then. How do you choose the customers to interview when you have millions of customers, given the need to avoid bias as well?
Good question. Yeah, so millions of customers. Okay, so you must be working at some kind of consumer application. I think the important thing is just to start. Don't overburden this. I mean, this is not quantitative research. So, if we were trying to, project the entire market, if we're trying to get, that 63% of people feel this way, if you're trying to do that, you need to be very careful about how you're sampling your data so that you don't introduce bias. But I wouldn't overburden this one. I would just get out. Remember, we're looking for stories, anecdotes. You're trying to get this intuitive understanding of your customers. As long as you're talking to a wide set of customers, you should be fine.
And I think this is also further tied in with a question from Sugiyama-san, where it's related but somewhat distant as well, where how do you decide which customer to prioritize speaking for B2B businesses? By revenue size, question mark?
Okay, so who to talk to? Yeah, certainly. If you've got a big segment that makes 60-70% of your revenue, and you're designing a product for that segment, yeah, go out and talk to them. Certainly. If you are designing a product to expand your product line and you're focusing on 10% of your customers, yeah, go talk to them. But so yeah, you can focus on those different segments. But I think the important thing is don't burden this one too much. Go ahead and cast a wide net. Go ahead and talk to a lot of customers.
And I think we have a question from Rupert Bacon, which is very pertinent to sort of the times we're currently in, which is any tips for doing remote customer discovery, great tools, best practices, and other.
Yeah. And you're right. So we, here I'm suggesting to get out and go talk to your customers. Sometimes that's a little figuratively because right now, of course, a lot of us can't travel. We can't go and talk directly to our customers. Because the Corona situation we're in. So a lot of that is over video conference. So yeah, a few tips and tricks on video conferencing. And even in normal times, by the way, like I was with a startup in Canada recently. We're talking to people in Vietnam. We were talking to shrimp farmers, in Vietnam, in Thailand, in India, in Ecuador. Occasionally you can travel there, but often you need to just get on the phone, right? It's just too far. So that's often the case. So often you want to do video conferencing, similar to, I guess, what we're doing today. But for video conferencing, yeah, you go through the same process. You need to be a little more controlled in a video conference because when you're with somebody face to face, you can kind of be a little more casual. You can kind of go off on tangents. You can, because you've got that personal rapport. It's a little tougher when you're on a video conference to kind of develop that. So you have to you have to be a little more focused, a little more confined. You don't just want to go off on tangents. They might not be quite as patient with you. Try to set up, try to kind of walk through think through, have a good discussion with them, but don't expect to go well over time. People just are a little stricter about that. So also, with video conferences, sometimes you can pull in a lot of your colleagues. Be a little careful of that. It's a best practice to bring along your colleagues into interviews, but make sure that they're not disruptive, especially on a video conference, because if too many people are talking or chiming in at once, it kind of gets a little out of control. So, and then the other thing, make sure you think about security. So, password protect your video conferences. You also want to ask them not to show confidential stuff on the screen. So if they've got names of their customers, or if you're talking to, like we had an example with an educational institution, you don't want them to show names of their students, for example. Anyway, those are some quick tips, but absolutely video conferencing, you're gonna get out and talk to your customers, but right now a lot of it's gonna be through video conferencing.
Yeah, and I think maybe we can take one more before continuing the slide from Andy J, which is when talking to customers, any recommendations on how to minimize interview bias, especially leading questions?
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's a whole bunch of ways, but I mean the essential way is that you need to take a tone of kind of openness. You need to be receptive to. You need to not necessarily respond if they criticize your product or say something that you don't like. You just need to be very professional. We are product managers, so we're passionate about our product, but you need to step back from that. And one way to do that is just ask a lot of open-ended questions. So tell me what you think about this, or tell me more, as opposed to somehow leading the question to, or leading to an answer because of the way that you ask your question. Lots of open-ended questions.
Great.
Good. All right. So that's talk directly to your customers. The next on the playlist, we're going to talk about testing your product concept. So if you are out talking to your customers, it's a great opportunity to go through this discovery and delivery process. It's a great opportunity to test your product concepts. So let me stop here. Let's do some comments here. So are you testing product concepts? New ideas? Are you testing your ideas, your concepts as you go through the development process, early stages, mid stages? Are you testing it with your customers today? So welcome any thoughts, just throw them in the chat.
I guess we'll have to just wait a few seconds. That delay, they're only just getting this information now.
Rye or Jasper, anything from your experience? Are you guys
well,
in your
for
jobs
me,
or what?
I mean, I'm a huge prototype nerd, I guess, because I have like a design UX background. I did prototypes very early on, text UX stuff, and obviously that works quite well for that. So yeah, I mean, I'm someone who kind of makes sure that prototypes and those sorts of things get in the hands of my users, customers, just anybody as soon as possible, because it just illustrates so quickly some of the flaws in thinking or some obvious mistakes. Even for myself, actually, that I know engineers have like a rubber duck system where they just read their code out to rubber duck to see if it's cohesive and makes sense. I find that even if I just use a prototype myself, I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Well, why isn't that there? So yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of that particular thing. So for me, yes.
Good experience doing that. It sounds like that's great.
Yeah. How about you, Jasper?
For my experience, I have to say I've kind of have been on both sides of that. I come from an entrepreneurial background and sort of from a very traditional education as well. So my first time when I did a startup went completely full waterfall, didn't even test anything. And then it just went completely landed flat on the floor, right? Just did not work. And then the second time around, it was like, okay, let's not do that again. So I've learned from the first mistakes, and ever since then, it's always been testing. Even when I've been joining, any companies that I've joined afterwards, if they hadn't had that culture, really trying to push it, because just personally knowing how important it is.
Yeah, that's great. Good.
We've also had our sort of first answers trickle in after the delay from Omar.
Okay.
He said, honestly, I'm not able to test product concepts as it is challenging to test a concept without competitors jumping in and mimicking your concept or even improve it. How do we manage it?
Interesting. All right. So you've got some confidentiality concerns. That's interesting. I mean, there's often, if you are testing product concepts, I guess what I'm proposing here is that you're doing it one by one, that you are actually in these customer interviews and you're talking one by one. So typically that reduces any kind of risk because, and then also you're testing product concepts. You're actually testing a bunch of concepts. You might test 4 or 5 in an interview. And so that kind of adds a little bit of confidentiality as well. But I think the big one is you're not talking to broad groups. You're not sending out surveys to 100 people or something. So I think that helps, but it depends how sensitive you're, Omar, I don't know. So it depends on how sensitive your product is.
We have a comment from Anchit, who said that we run A/B tests for any new features we plan to launch and look at the performance by tracking certain product metrics.
Great. Yeah. Only thing I would say to that, I mean, that's great you're doing that. It's perfect. And that's one of the ways that product teams really accelerate the evolution of their products. The only thing I'd say is you also want the qualitative reasons behind that. So you also want to know, I think as a product manager, kind of that deeper understanding. So not just what you see right there in the data, but actually what's happening, why people are leaning one direction or the other. So you really kind of want that qualitative understanding. So I guess what I propose is you do both.
From Matt, we have, this is harder in an older, more traditional company. There's a perceived right or otherwise of negative brand damage by showing important customers something that's not perfect.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I think in that case, if you've got I guess two things. One is you don't necessarily have to talk to your biggest important, most important customers, the most sensitive ones to your business. I mean, you can go down a level, you can talk to the next level down that maybe is not as sensitive. But also there are ways, I mean, I think you can just position it and say, look, we're just trying out some ideas. We're just thinking about this stuff. I'm going to show you stuff. We may do it. We may not do it. I just want to get your thoughts. You can kind of co-opt them into the development process, and usually people appreciate that. And I think maybe that can help get around some of these cultural issues that maybe some of the managers in your companies are a little worried about.
Great. And then from Sugiyama-san, we have not testing as much as we would like, especially since my current company works in a waterfall way.
Okay, good. So there's upside opportunity. Yeah, I think there's some good work to add here then. All right, so thanks for jumping in on that one. That's helpful to kind of have that dialogue back and forth. Again, if we were face to face, we'd all just be shouting it out, but this is great to do it this way. So I'm glad we can do this. So a little bit more on testing your product concepts. So we have a lot of ideas for product enhancements. They come from us, they come from our engineering team, they come from our customers, they come out of our strategy, they come from our executives. Our executives stop by and say, do this. The thing is that all those ideas that we have, some are excellent and some are just absolutely worthless. The problem is we just don't know which ones are which. So the trick is to quickly vet these ideas, discarding the bad, keeping the good, and then get into these kind of test, feedback, refine, test loops with customers. So you're wanting to test something, you hear feedback, you go back. Good engineering, or good teams sometimes do it in the same day. You're back out of the customers, you're showing something again. You just kind of go in fast back and forth loops with customers, and you're trying to hone your product concepts to find fast product market fit. So that's where we want to get to. This is when I talk about lean product development, lean product management. That's this. You're not just deciding up front to do a product this way and then going through the full development cycle and then finding out it doesn't have good product market fit and kind of wasting all of that effort, right? You're trying to find your bad ideas quickly, get rid of them, and you're trying to refine your good ideas with kind of minimal investment through this kind of this test, feedback, test loop cycle. And I pointed this one out earlier, but we are going from, it is kind of a funnel process. You're getting rid of a lot of ideas early on. You're kind of only keeping the ones that are testing well, and you're going into discovery and doing the same thing. You're refining only those, and you're only passing off to delivery stuff that truly is testing well. I'll give you an example. Back to Keep Truckin'. So we were talking about this example, what they did, or if you're in this situation, what you can do. You want to start out with very simple concepts. You don't want to, you remember we've got a lot of ideas up front. You don't want to spend a lot of money. You don't want to spend a lot of engineering time. You don't want to spend a lot of your time crafting your ideas. Just get out and get some quick testing. So even just a simple printout. So I've got an idea, let's think about it. Let's just put it down on paper in kind of a very non-biased, non-salesy way, just a simple idea. Show it to people. You maybe spend 30 minutes putting that printout together, maybe 15 minutes, very low investment. Show people. Do they like it? They not. Okay, if they like it, if it's getting traction, then maybe you go to the next level. So, and the next level, something easy to do if you're working with software, for example, or even hardware. If maybe your engineers are working on something, if you're working on software, you can just do a screen capture. You can create a quick video. Maybe everything in that video doesn't work. If you click on this button, you get nowhere. If you click on this button, you get nowhere. So you couldn't give it to a customer, but you can show a video of a walkthrough of software. Pretty easy to do, pretty low cost. Get out and show people a video and just see what they think. And Keep Truckin', by the way, did all of these things. So, and then you go to clickable prototype. So here you're kind of evolving your concepts. And then a user can kind of click on stuff and try it out themselves, and you can see where they go. So clickable prototypes, or if you're working with hardware, kind of a 3D printout, 3D mock-up, something that they can handle and touch. And then all along the way, you're spending a little more time on these mock-ups as you're going to the right, and you are. But you're also getting deeper feedback. But you only want to spend more time when you know that a concept is having traction. And then at some point you're out to beta software and you can give that to customers and they can try it. And so maybe before you're kind of doing one by one, beta software, you can go out to 30, 40, 50 customers more and get feedback from a broad set. So Keep Truckin' through, I can't say that they did all of these steps, but they went through a process like this where they started off very simple and got feedback. Often at these truck stops when they went there, got feedback, quickly refined the product. They went through fast product evolution to get out. And I think that was part of their success. All right, test your product concepts. I'm going to go to the third one, and that is really kind of find ways to release incrementally. And I put a challenge by this one because a lot of companies, if you're just strictly in software, this is not that hard. If you're doing software and hardware, if you're just doing hardware, or some other product, some kind of service, sometimes this is hard to do. So even software, people sometimes don't have the right, I think they go in with maybe the mindset that we've got to have this complete package, this complete application before we send it out. So this is a bit of a challenge, but let me talk about this a little bit. But let me stop here. This is our last one. I just want to ask, are your new product releases more smaller and sooner? Are you releasing incrementally, kind of smaller and sooner? Or are you releasing kind of bigger and later? After 9 months, you pull everything together and get it out the door. Or are you kind of doing more iterative, kind of really breaking up your products in small portions and getting them out? So welcome any comments on this one.
Maybe Jasper and I can weigh in while I wait for everybody to catch up. Seems to be a great. For me, we've actually just launched a brand new product, and I guess because it's a new product, there isn't really a lot of bulky stuff that we need to do. So right now, my team's fortunate enough to be doing lots of very small, soon iterative kind of releases.
Great, nice.
But can't speak too much about it, but we have been sort of going in a more smaller package iterative phase. Traditionally, the product for my team has been done much more through a waterfall sort of mentality, but I do think that kind of perception and style has been gradually changing even before I joined the team.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun or anything, but I've noticed that this particular kind of smaller or sooner versus bigger or later typically ties in with the idea of the whole outcome versus output type of discussion. It's like, what are you gunning for?
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's good. Yeah.
Let's see. We've got an answer now. I guess Jasper, you want to pull that one up?
Oh, I actually don't see it on mine yet. So if you
really?
can, yeah.
Sure. Omar's back, who's been looking after us a lot tonight, which is great. He said, I believe either to release smaller and often or bigger and later is depending on the product nature itself and the market, and also the criticality of the product for human life. Testing is needed too, is his comment.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, you can't, that's true. For regulated products, for medical products, for stuff that is highly controlled, it is tougher to release smaller and sooner. It's often you have to pull the whole package together. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, because even some of the companies that are in spaces like that, very highly regulated, very controlled products, they do find ways. So
Yeah, I remember reading, I think GE was one of the pioneers, did a lot of fast stuff, and they were like, oh, we can't possibly do that, we do big engines, and they found ways to sort of really speed up their process as well. So if GE can do it for companies, I'm sure that it's an option for other people.
That's right. And I was working with insurance companies recently. I mean, we were talking about this stuff, and the insurance companies, this is in the US. I mean, they're big, regulated products, but they have to go through a careful process before they get it out. But they were also doing things that make bigger and later. They were doing things like releasing to every state all at once, whereas potentially they could just follow the rules from Oregon and get something out fast. So even for a lot of products that you wouldn't expect, you can find ways.
We have Keiko-san said smaller and sooner where we can, but product marketing tends to like bigger and sort of later for a bigger impact for the marketing release.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. No, that's an important point. Often when I've worked with other teams, I mean, you can often get things out incrementally, but then you pull together a major launch where you talk about everything, but that maybe is just every 6 months or every 12 months. I mean, it depends on the product, but sometimes you can do it that way as well. You continue to release incrementally, but then you kind of package it all up into one big launch.
Yeah. And Matt's back, I think he's showing off. He's saying, proud to say that my previous product was releasing code multiple times a day. And then product features will be released on and off instance switches that can be A/B tested in a week or so. So quite a rapid release there.
That's great. Yeah, rapid process there. So you're probably, Matt, you're probably going some pretty rapid product evolution on that one, which is a good thing. Very good. All right, I'm going to keep moving then. I'm just going to state up front that smaller and sooner is often better than bigger and later. And the reason that we want to release incrementally, and this is just one of these new flavors of product management and product development. First of all, we can offer value to customers sooner. So instead of waiting, back on our insurance company example, instead of waiting 9 months to release in 50 states, you could at 4 months, you could release to a few states. So you're offering value to the customers sooner. That's good. Also, the flip side of that is they're paying you sooner. Okay, so that's good. Also, the really big advantage, I think, and this is a lean product management, lean product development process, is that if you made a mistake, if you went through your whole process, you did everything right, but you get out of the market, and by the time you get to a lot of customers, it's not working. You really did not find product market fit. If you have waited 9 months, if you waited 12 months, you're going to wait that long to find that out. But if you've got something out sooner, in 3 months and 6 months, you can be able to course correct pretty quickly. So, and that's a good thing. So, and then back to, I think, Matt's comment, you really kind of want to learn and evolve faster than your competitors. We often think it's the first to market company that has all the advantage, but it's often the company that moves the fastest, that evolves the fastest, that ends up winning in the long run. All right, smaller and sooner, better than bigger than later. If we think about Keep Truckin, I can tell you, you could think about, well, it's a regulated application. There's a whole bunch of regulations around this thing. Don't we have to wrap this all up? Don't we have to have everything done? And the answer is no. First of all, what Keep Truckin did is they went out with a drivers only application first. There was no, the companies themselves, they went out drivers only, maybe owner operators, but there was no back-end reporting. They hadn't built all of that out, where the major trucking companies could look at everybody's reports. That came a little later. At the beginning, they had limited feature. There were no in-cab alerts. There's no in-cab Wi-Fi, which, Omnitrax and PeopleNet had. There's no messaging. There's no tax reporting, which is like when you cross state lines in the US. None of that stuff was there at the beginning. So for companies like Keep Truckin, when they're going through this stuff, you can kind of think through, even when you got a highly regulated product, you can think through how to do some of this. One region, one country only, for example, another way to do it. And there's just lots of ways. So often when you look at your products, you might say it needs to all stay together. We need to do this whole dashboard. But in reality, you can do a corner of your dashboard first and get it out. It's not complete product. You still need to keep working on it, but you can get it out sooner and get some feedback sooner. So that's the challenge. See if you can find ways to release these products incrementally. All right, so that's my suggestion, the new flavors of product management. These are things that I think you can do fairly soon. You could even start like talking to real customers. I mean, every team can do this. You may have to get over some internal organizational hurdles, but you can do this. You can start talking directly to real customers. Teams that I've seen do this, they just often have it really kind of jump starts their game. They really up their game when they do this. Testing your product concepts, that's easy to do as well. So you can get out, test your product concepts, test your ideas, kind of do this in an iterative fashion. And then I realized that the last one, the third one's a little harder for some of us, for some companies, but it's a challenge. You can find ways to release incrementally. All right, so that's what I was going to step through today. I'll open it up for questions here in a minute, but there's some additional resources that I'll just pass along. I do have a course on Udemy, Product Management 101, if you're interested. We just released a second course on insightful customer interviews for product managers. So this whole idea about interviewing your customers and really kind of digging in and asking questions, open questions in an unbiased way. We talked through all of that in that course. I just think there's a great article. Marty Kagan was here earlier with you guys, which is excellent. I think there's a great article that he did, if you want to look it up, just called Product Success. It's like 3 pages long, 4 pages long. It's just full of, I think, just great information. So I'd suggest go look for that one. He talks about a lot of the stuff that we talked about in this lecture. Rich Mironov is a friend of mine. His blogs, I think, are just exceptional. Maybe we can get him here sometime, or at least on the phone with us for this group. He'd probably be willing to do that. So he's just got some exceptional blogs. And then I've also got a book as well. So if you're interested in becoming a more strategic product manager. So anyway, some resources, some extra help if you'd like. Oh, and then I've got my contact information here as well. So you can always reach out to me. All right, that's it. I'm happy to, I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm happy to answer any questions or have a full-on discussion.
Yeah, sure. We got a little bit of time. I mean, there were 1 or 2 questions that were sort of a little more broad, I think, that we wanted to pull towards the Q&A at the end here. So, I mean, the first things, I guess, is can we get a copy of this presentation? Is that okay to share? Are there any issues there?
Yeah. So I'll get you guys a PDF after this. Yeah, I'd be happy.
Cool. So that should answer a lot of questions that are probably already incoming about that. So,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I think we could probably post it to the meetup, but maybe we can just post it there, and then if anyone reaches out to us, we can send them a copy as well. And Omar had a question right at the start, was about I guess he was asked about your favorite books, and I guess we covered some of the content that you kind of have already been reading and engaged with, and also he asked about sort of newsletters as well. Was there anything that you might want to recommend to anybody here regarding sort of some of your favorite books, newsletters, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so Rich's is good. Rich Mironov's good. Marty Kagan's good. He's got a book out there. Teresa Torres has some good stuff. She's got some blogs, and it's Torres. She's got some great stuff as well. Who else? Fortunately, I think, just like what's happening today. I mean, all around the world. I mean, these events are getting filmed. I think the product management community is pretty open and pretty. There's just a lot of material out there that you can find. I think a lot of really high quality stuff. The other thing I'll say, I mean, it's kind of because everybody's here. I mean, normally when I talk to people, I was like, get to the meetups. Go step out of your companies. Make sure that you are not just thinking my world of product is like this. It's not just like your own company. It's important to reach out to the function of product management. And can only tap into the best practices that are elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of one of the best parts about our thing here, right? Is there aren't really a lot of solid answers to a lot of new questions that emerge. So the best thing to do is have a conversation and sort of figure out, well, what are you doing and what's the difference to the thing that I'm doing, and then sort of in the middle. We are getting a few more questions in now. Michael said, Todd, I really enjoyed the talk. Do you have special insights to follow these processes with companies in Japan?
Yeah, I'm still learning about product management here. I've been here, we moved here to Japan about 2 months ago, so I'm not sure I do. So Jasper or Rai, you guys may have comments on that one.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll let Jasper talk because he hasn't had a chance to talk much tonight. What do you think, Jasper? Going to answer that question?
Yeah, I could give it a run. So, one of the things about I think how product is run is actually extremely dependent on the culture of the company, right? So even if it wasn't in Japan, companies in say the U.S. or Australia, how their product culture is going to be extremely different from company to company. When you come to Japan, though, then of course you have that giant difference in actual like the societal cultural view too, right? So Michael, in kind of your later comment, you also mentioned like getting around lower tolerance of bugs and expectations that on seniority, for example. And I think these are very high hurdles to kind of face. In my experience, it's been much more about using your soft skills to kind of get the recognition of how maybe that sort of culture is not exactly the most applicable to a technology company, right? Um, and that's something that I think, some of the articles that Todd has mentioned, written by Marty Kagan, actually dive really deep into, right? What exact kind of cultural thinking that you have to have in regards to actually implement these sort of things going forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, and to add on to that, regarding the culture thing and also regarding like resources worth reading, I was actually recommended to by one of the product managers for Google Search, who was actually visiting the office here in Tokyo, and he said that he just finished a book called The Culture Map, which really talks about cultures and businesses and how that kind of conflicts. And that was something I read during my quarantine time. That was a really interesting discussion about sort of the kinds of ways that you can approach different cultures and how they have an impact. But I mean, I think ultimately one of your main points in your conversation, Todd, was talk to your consumers, talk to your customers, get a hand of your users, and that, like regardless of the cultural differences, the reality is that any assumptions that you make probably won't end up, there's assumptions, you don't know if it's true or not. And if you talk to your end user and you see what they want to do, you'll be surprised. And I think that's something that I've learned in my time in Japan so far. Was I was very concerned about all of this knowledge that I built up about how to do product and what worked and what didn't work. And there were lots of things that to me seemed like they may not be true here and they may not work here. But if anything, it just reinforced this thing of we can have a few reasonably based assumptions based on what we know, but you're testing them and you're talking to customers about them, and then you sort of discover the truth anyway. So, I mean, Japan really isn't any different anywhere else. Talk to your customers and they'll tell you what you want. Like they will talk to you here. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so a lot of the fundamentals are all still there.
Definitely. No other questions coming in just yet, but I'm sure there'll be some later. We did have someone else sort of mention that they wanted the PDF, just to clarify. We will be sharing this on the meetup. I'm pretty sure we can share it on that. I'll add a comment to it. But obviously, yeah, if you want to message any of the team here, we can do that. Any other questions before we wrap this up? Because I'm sure that everybody is really, really sick and tired of being on Zoom calls and and being online. I'm sure we want to go hang out with real people. So that'll be quite exciting. But,
there was one from Julia Lee and VJ, and also it might have been Omar before, on asking getting into product management with either a business management background or a technical background. And maybe seeing the tie-in with what Todd has kind of spoken about today, maybe leveraging that into it.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Julia's question as well. Okay, so the technical skills, yeah. So, I mean, there are companies that when you move into product management, they will want a software background. I mean, there are companies that have that requirement. There are a lot of companies where that doesn't necessarily make sense. You need to have, often if you're working with technology, if you're working with engineers, you're working with software managers, or software developers or hardware, you need to have an appreciation for technology. You don't want to be adverse to technology. You need to understand kind of the constraints that technology poses and kind of the opportunities. You need to have a good sense of that. But they're going to do the coding. Your software engineers are going to do the coding. You're not going to be doing the coding. So, and we've got all this other work to do. So if you're if you've got a software background and you're a product manager, and you're ending up coding, I'd say you're missing out on your role. Because there's so many important things that we need to do that the engineers can't do. And it's a lot of the stuff that we talked about in this presentation. So yeah, we got an important role. So and a lot of it does not require, you need to be appreciative of technology, understand the constraints, enjoy technology, but to know how to code, I mean, you've got other experts in the company that know how to do that. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree, but anyway, that's where I would come in at.
Nope, I totally agree. I think that if any product manager has had the misfortune of trying to tell an engineer how to code, then they know it's a very bad experience for pretty much everybody involved. Just don't ever do that.
Don't do that one. That's not a best practice.
Yeah, you can always make very general, nice suggestions. I always do that with my design teams. I'm like, oh, I learned this, or I read this once. Maybe you can consider that. I never tell them to do that, otherwise they'll never want to work with me again. We have one more question, and it's from Omar, so it's only fair that he wraps it up because he's been here the whole time. Which is, during an interview or a meeting, what gives away that this person is either a great product manager or just normal? Would love to hear your take about that. So I guess this is reviewing other product managers.
Yeah. I think in interviews, you really want to act like a product manager, even if you haven't been a product manager before. Often we've had experiences in our work that are product management like. So even if you haven't had direct product management experience, for example, understanding user needs. So if you talk to customers, if you've tried to understand user needs, that's just a central part of product management. So if you can give stories about doing that, if you can talk about your experiences when you've done that, and those are great experiences. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that you can talk like a product manager. And even if you haven't been a product manager, you can rely on your past experience and use those experiences and let them come out in the interview.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think to add to that too, one of my favorite products sort of management questions for the hire interview process has always been asking them, what's your favorite product and why do you love it? I actually really love that one. That tends to kind of give someone a bit of insight into how they think about products and what they like. I've always quite liked that question in interviews.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll go one more question because we got places to be, like our own homes. This one's from Keiko, said, would like to hear your thoughts on fake agile and how to tackle that and thrive despite not being a PM that's part of senior leadership.
Yeah, I'm stumped on that one. What do we mean by fake agile here?
Fake agile, I guess. I mean, I'm gonna assume, because I've had a bit of experience with this. It's people that do, like, they say they're agile and they do the agile rituals, but they may not actually really understand the fundamentals of why we do these things. It's like, oh, we're agile. We have a stand up every morning, so we're definitely agile. But our release schedule is 6 months long, and we never talk to any users, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, that's good. So, I mean, the stuff that we talked about in this presentation about getting out and seeing your customers, testing product concepts, releasing incrementally, that's all lean product management. That's all agile thinking. If it is truly just a tiny little corner of your software development that is going through the agile ceremonies, and that's all you're doing, but everything else is very structured and waterfall, then that's kind of fake agile in that case, right? So, I mean, I think the agile ceremonies themselves are not that important. I mean, they're just a tool. I think it's the spirit behind that, the spirit of experimentation, the experience of, kind of iterative releases, constant feedback from your customers. That's the important part. You need to capture that spirit, that kind of exploratory spirit and learning as you go spirit. That's what makes something agile and lean. I think it's less important whether, you have the right retrospectives or you're going through the exact agile ceremonies.
Yeah, agreed. Great, cool. Okay, well, in that case, let's wrap this thing up. Thanks to you, Todd, more than anything. Thank you so much for being our speaker, helping us celebrate World Product Day, the 10th anniversary. It's been really good having you here. It's been really good to have some social gathering of sorts. It's been it's like you mentioned, not as good as having people yell at you in the crowd, but we'll have to.
Thanks for inviting
Yeah.
me. I really appreciate it. I appreciated all the interaction today too. I wasn't sure quite how that would work. but I
Yeah,
thought it
yeah,
worked
yeah.
well.
I was surprised too. It was actually, sans a few delays, it was actually pretty good. But thanks for everyone joining. Thanks for my other organizers, Jasper and Hannah. You've been very, very helpful. Getting lots of thanks in the chat as well. Again, join the meetup page. It's in the chat. You guys probably found it through the meetup. By the sounds of things, we may be having a real life meetup sooner than we expected. So keep posted for that. But yeah, if anyone wants to share their own talks or join our team or just have a conversation in general, please reach out to any one of us. We'll be posting the PDF shortly. And yeah, thanks a lot for everyone attending tonight. It's been really fun.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
See you,
Thanks.
everybody.